guys, we picked about 80, almost 85 pounds of rhubarb the other day, and you can see those stalks. Actually, this is ready to harvest. Real close. So anyhow, we've got quite a bit of rhubarb. And we put this rhubarb patch in several years ago with the idea of being able to use it to produce wine and other things. Today I want to talk to you about making wine. We're going to make a 50-gallon, 55-gallon batch of wine. Well, the primary will be a 50, 55-gallon drum. The net on that will probably be around 30, 35 gallons once it's completed. But I'm going to take you through the process of making wine the way we do winemaking here at Terra Bella. One of the things I want to say is we use the most simple recipe there is to make wine. We don't use chemicals or any additives. We just use the fruit, sugar, and an active yeast. And I'll use a yeast nutrient, but usually it's just raisins, and I'll show you how to do that. There's a lot of things you can use for a yeast nutrient, but that's what we use here. It's easy to get a hold of, and it stores well on the shelf. So anyhow, yeah, I'm going to take you through that process, so come along, let's get it done. The first thing you need to do is sanitize your containers, your primary vessel. In this case, we're using a 55-gallon drum, and so you want to do cleaning and sanitation of the drum, the lid, and anything that's going to be touching the Okay, we're back. Here's some of my primary fermentation tanks. This is a 55-gallon unit, and there's another 55-gallon unit and a 30-gallon unit with a spigot on it. Generally what happens when I make wine, we'll put it in the 55-gallon to start it. Of course, the fruit goes in there and the sugars and the yeast, and then once you rack that off and remove all the fruit and the solids, then it will net about 30 gallons, maybe a little more. It depends on the fruit and things. But so I move from the primary, and from there I'll take and remove the fruit. I'll rack it. I'll run it through a strainer and just get the liquid off of it, and it will be generally that tank right there, and maybe if I have a little more I can use some 5-gallon carboys to put the additional fruit or wine in those. So anyhow, we're cleaning this up. It's got some residue from a previous batch of wine. I made some pear wine and a while back, and I never did get this cleaned up. So we're going to clean it up, get it sanitized, and then we'll show you what we do next. Okay? What you want to do is get this barrel good and clean. I've got hot water that I put in it, as hot as I can stand, and I've added this to it as for sanitation. It's an OxyCleaner. You want to get the unscented. It's a lot cheaper than the stuff that you buy at the winemaking supply. So this is Sun brand OxyClean. There's several brands, I think, of the OxyClean. But get the unscented, okay, or you won't have good wine. So I take and scrub this barrel out. It with clean cold water, scrub it out, and take a scrub brush and a rag, rinse it out several times, and then after you get it good and clean that way, then you want to use hot water and your OxyClean. Mix the OxyClean into the hot water, dissolve it, pour it into the barrel, and then get in there with a rag and make sure you get it all over, scrub all the surface, and then we're going to rinse that out good, and that's pretty much all you have to do, and the lid as well. Okay, so I'm going to get into this and show you. The second thing you want to do is prepare the fruit that you're going to be using. In this case, we picked about 85 pounds of rhubarb, and that's what we're going to be making our wine with today, is rhubarb. So you'll want to clean that and cut it up into 1 inch to 2 to 3 inch pieces. And what we do, we freeze it for a couple days, and then at that point we'll get it out of the freezer and put it into the primary and go through the process. So the reason we freeze it is because it breaks down the fibers in the fruit and releases the juices, and allows the fruit to work better in the process. Okay, one of the things that we like to do before we get started making wine is drink a little wine. So anyhow, this is to you guys. Appreciate your views and everything. We enjoy making these videos. So this is a little bit of rhubarb wine 2015, and I've already drank some, so I know it's good. Tastes like it should. I enjoy it. Like I said, our wine's not real sweet or anything like that, but I mean, I think it's sweet, but most people don't think it's sweet, so I just like my wine a little drier. So anyhow, we'll get started. Okay, I already pulled the fruit out of the freezer. It's all cubed up, chunked up. We've got several bags here. About 82, 83 pounds, I think is what she said. She weighed it. As we bagged it up, we've got a scale. So that's about right. You could put a little less, a little more, but I like to use about approximately 15 pounds per 5 gallon of fruit. A little more won't hurt, but this will flavor this just fine. It's going to be, if you don't, one of the other rule of thumbs that I like to use is whatever your vessel is that you're going to do the primary fermentation in, divide it up into thirds, and you at least want the fruit to come up 1/3 up the vessel. And if you have that much fruit in it, you've got enough fruit to make wine. It doesn't matter what size your vessel is, if it's 20 gallon, 10 gallon, or 30 or 50. 1/3 of that vessel should be fruit. That's kind of a rule of thumb that I use. I'm not sure that other people use that. I've kind of developed my own system here. I've taken the information that I've got through various resources, and it generally seems like that's the way it works out. So I'm just kind of giving you a tip that it's what I've developed. So anyhow. And all the fruit in. Simple as that. The third step after the fruit's put in, you're going to want to add your sugar. In this case, because we're making 55 gallons in the primary, we're going to be using about 120 pounds of sugar. So we're going to add that sugar now, and then after that we're going to go ahead and add water. We'll bring the water level up to about 5-6 inches from the top of the barrel rim, and then at that point we're going to go ahead and add our raisins, which is the yeast nutrient, and then from there we're going to prepare the yeast and add it, and then we'll seal that up and add an airlock to the to the primary tank or barrel, and then usually 24 to possibly 48 hours before anything will start taking place. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add sugar. In this case, wife picked up pure, it's just regular sugar that you would buy, white sugar, crystal sugar. These are 10-pound bags. Okay, and rule of thumb for me, I'm using about 10 to 12 pounds of sugar per 5 gallon. So in this case, we've got, we would need 5 of these. Actually, we don't have enough. 1, 2, 3. We're a little light on sugar. I'll have to get more sugar. But anyhow, we're going to add about 10 pounds for every 5 gallon of wine. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding that. And I'll have to see if she's got more. Maybe she just didn't give it to me. But 10 pounds approximately. You could go less, you can go more. Everybody has a little different recipe, but I like to do around 10 to 12 pounds per 5 gallons. So I'm going to start adding the sugar. And also, it depends on how sweet the fruit is. If the fruit has a lot of sugar in it, you wouldn't need as much sugar. But if the fruit is not real sweet, like rhubarb's not real sweet, it's actually kind of sour. It is sour. So I'm definitely going to need my 10 pounds or more per 5 gallons. So we're going to add what we got here, and I'll see if I can get some more. But yeah, put that right on top of the fruit. Now what I'm going to do once I get all the sugar in, I'm going to, because this fruit is frozen and we want to add the yeast to it a little later, I'm going to go ahead and put warm water in this so it will thaw out quicker. Maybe warm to almost hot water. But I want to make sure that the temperature of the water and the fruit is around 70 to 80 degrees. Around 80 degrees before I add the yeast. I probably could let it cool down, and I probably could even have it a little warmer. There's a wide variation of temperature. Now when I start the yeast, I'm going to start it in some water that won't between 100 and 105 degrees. And I get that yeast started, and then I'll add it to this mix. Once this is, like I said, I'll get sugar in it and I'll fill it up with water. You know, maybe going to go ahead and add water now, being that the fruit is frozen and I want to get it started here. Yet today I'm going to use hot water, at least 1 5-gallon bucket of hot water, and then probably warm water, and bring this thing up to about 6 inches below the bottom of the rim. So let's go ahead and start adding the water. Okay, well, we've got a little bit of time here. I run up and talked to Terry. We didn't have any sugar, and we was actually short on yeast. I thought we had all that. We're like 4 packets short, and we're 40 pounds short on sugar. And we don't have raisins, and I'll explain what the raisins are about. But before I get started, I think I'm going to pour me another glass of wine, because like I said, you've got to drink wine while you're making wine, right? Anyhow, she's going to get back, and we're going to put the remaining amount of sugar back into the vessel here. And then what we're going to do, we're going to take and those raisins, I like to use a pack per 5 gallons. She's going to get 10 packs. So I think they're like 12 to 16 ounce packs. It's like $1 a pack at the dollar store, I think. But yeah, just get regular raisins and add some water to a pan. Put them in the pan and boil them. Boil them good. And when they're boiling, take either a potato masher or a fork or something and squeeze the heck out of those raisins, and squeeze all those nutrients and stuff that are inside the raisins, and release that into the water. You actually could shut it off once it reaches a boil for a couple minutes. Shut it off, and then go ahead and mash and release the nutrients out of that, and real good. Open those raisins up. And what we're going to do is, after the sugar's added, we're going to add those raisins to the mix. And anyway, we're going to put that in there. And then after that, we're going to, once the sugar, the raisins, and everything are in there, we're going to make sure we have enough water to come about, like I said earlier, about 6 inches below the top. We've got to leave an air gap, because when this thing starts fermenting, the fruit's going to form a cake, and it's going to come to the surface, and it's going to try to push up on the lid, and it's going to block off the airlock, and could cause some problems. So you want that air space, so when it comes to the top, it doesn't block off your airlock. So anyhow, when she gets back, we'll get this going. Until then, okay guys, Terry got back, and I showed you all the supplies earlier. But anyhow, we're going to continue to add the rest of the sugar. We're going to put 60 more pounds. We put 60 pounds in originally. We're going to put 60 more. So I'm going to continue to put these in, but also this is that tool that I was telling you about. Okay, looks like it's a potato masher, but it's about, I don't know, 30 inches, 3 foot. It's got about a 6-inch masher on the bottom, but I bought that. I thought that worked pretty good. It was pretty inexpensive at a commercial food store. So anyway, that's what I use to push this down and mix it up. Remember I told you, after this gets going, starts fermenting, about once a day or every other day if you can, come down here, pull the lid off of it, and all that fruit will float to the top, and you want to keep that pushed down into the liquid. If you don't do it every day, I think you'll be fine. But you should try if you can. Like I said, I've went up to a week without it doing that, and I didn't have any problem. But if you can, I think you're better off to do that. So we're going to continue to keep adding sugar here, and then next step will be the raisins. I'll go upstairs and boil those and squeeze those, and then I'll show you what I do there too. But let me go ahead and get the rest of the sugar in, okay? Okay, we have our water on right now. I've got it on high. Let me bring it to a boil, and meanwhile I'm gonna go ahead and add the raisins. I've got 6 packs of raisins here, which should be plenty. I normally probably would have used a pack, probably 10 packs, but this is what Terry come back with, and it's gonna be plenty. It'll work just fine. It'll be just fine. Well, okay. Pot full of raisins. Gonna boil them. Basically, gonna make a tea out of them. Here's what I use: a little masher, like a potato masher. It's not boiling yet, but we're gonna go ahead and start mashing. It's getting warm. Oh, Steve, I knocked a few out there. That's all right. I got a little excited, I guess. Just keep working it. See how it's getting, the water's getting darker. It's turned into like a tea. Actually tastes pretty good. I've drank it before. Now, like I said, this is going to be the yeast nutrient. The yeast is really going to feed on this and help it get a good start. There's a lot of nutrients and enzymes and different things in the raisins that the yeast really likes. So, again, there's other things you can use, but this is what I use. If you go online and look and do researches, you can find natural things to replace the store-bought in the wine making. The companies that sell those products, they use chemicals. They don't generally use natural products. So anyhow, we want to do it as natural as possible, so we use these raisins. So anyhow, you could use grapes too, I'm sure. If you want to get grapes and do the same thing, break those up and break them down and add them to the wine, you'd probably do the same thing. We just happen to use the raisins, so anything, grapes or raisins will work. I've actually added grapes to wine before. Just throw them in there for a little added flavor, or just again, it can be used as a yeast nutrient, but generally I just use raisins. I keep them on the shelf so we can buy them. We get a hold of them cheap and put them on the shelf, and then we have them when we're ready to make wine. Well, look at that. It's really getting dark. That water is turned into like a tea. That's what we want. We want to mash that and squeeze all that stuff out of those grapes, or raisins, I'm sorry. It's getting hot. Yep. Sorry about the camera work. I'm trying to video and do this with one, and it's kind of gets a little awkward, as you guys well know, but I think you're going to get the gist of what I'm doing anyway. So okay, I'm going to bring this to a boil and keep squeezing them. The next step is to add them to our wine mix in the barrel. So see, it's boiling now. I'll let that boil for a couple minutes, and that really extracts that nutrients out of those raisins. So okay, well, I'm going to get this done, and then I'm going to go back down to the basement and add it to the mix. Okay? Everything together, getting the the raisins boiled and everything. So I want to show you, we're just going to put them in there, kind of give you an idea of what's going on here. Kind of put this, anyway, that's what it looks like. All the rhubarb in there, we're down about 4 inches, maybe 5. From the top, we've got all 120 pounds of sugar. Okay, we'll just go through this. We've got the rhubarb, 85 pounds of rhubarb. We've got 120 pounds of sugar, and we added hot water to thaw that out, and as needed, up to about 4 or 5 inches below the rim. Now we're getting ready to add our raisins for a yeast nutrient, and I brought them down. They're right here. You've seen them on the stove boiling, so we're going to put those in. Okay, that's all those, and for now I'm just gonna leave them on the top, because that's where the yeast is going to end up being poured right on top. So just pour your raisins, leave them on floating on top. Don't mix it up, because that'll help that yeast get started, those juices and the raisins and everything right there. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up some get some yeast started, and then we'll continue with this. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, we're ready to activate the yeast here. I've got a pan of water. The water's approximately 100 to 105 degrees. We've got our 10 bags of yeast, and we're going to empty those in to the water. And we're going to let that set. We're going to stir it a little bit, let it set for a little bit till it starts bubbling. Little air bubbles that come to the top, and at that point you know it's starting to activate. So we get this started, and then we're going to take it back down, and we're going to add it to our wine mix down there in the barrel. And like I said, it's probably going to take 24 to 48 hours before the yeast takes hold and starts really doing anything, and the barrel starts fermenting. But it's just temperature, depends on temperature and things. So anyhow, I'm going to get this stirred here. Let's use this. Get this stirred up, and then let it sit for 10-15 minutes or whatever it takes. Just make sure all the yeast is submerged in water. You might stick this sides a little bit, kind of scratch it off and mix it in. Some of it's going to stick to your spoon or whatever you're using to stir it with. Make sure that's all off. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, Terry just handed me a thermometer, so we'll check that and see where we're at. I didn't use a thermometer. I just run out of the tap and I feel it with my hands, so I usually do it that way. And it's going to probably reach over 100. It's at 98 now. I don't know if you guys can see that. We're almost 100 degrees. That's what I was shooting for. There's 100. It's going a little bit over, but it's slowing down. So it's probably about 102 degrees, I would just guess. But like I said, 100 to 105 is a good temperature to get it started. Anything over 105 could kill it. So I know that some people go up a little higher. I think you can go on some yeast up to 110 degrees, but I don't like to go that. They don't recommend it, at least for what we're using. So we're good. We're just over 100 degrees, 101, 102. Actually, it's already bubbling. See that? It's already bubbling. So we'll give it some time here. 10-15 minutes, and then we'll take it down and add it to the mix. Okay, we'll see you down there. Okay guys, I've already added the yeast. Sorry I didn't get a video of that, but I went ahead and poured the yeast in, sealed up the barrel, and got my airlock on. So that's been done. This is the day after. I just made this clip to add to the end of the video, but it's already bubbling in the airlock, and I'm going to show you that. So it did start within 24 hours or less, actually. So I'll focus in on that. But the other thing I wanted to mention is when I didn't say anything about the water. Don't use water that's got chlorine or anything, any chemicals or additives that could affect the wine. The yeast in particular, it may not start and it could affect the taste. So I would recommend spring water. We happen to have spring water here on our property. That's what we drink. So that works out real well for us. So anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and let you see this airlock and see that it's bubbling, that it did take off. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you like the video, and we hope that you'll continue to tune into our channel. So here is the airlock. Yep, it's bubbling away. So I'll let this ferment for probably, I don't know, it'll probably ferment for 2-3 weeks. It's hard to say, really. It's a big batch. It takes a while. So I'll keep you updated, but that's where we're at, and that's how you make wine, or how we make wine here at Terra Bella Farm. So take it easy, guys.